Welcome to my brand new podcast, which is entitled Know the Truth with Esther. My name is Esther Njeru. I am a born-again Christian. I have studied counseling psychology to the master's degree level. I'm a retired teacher, secondary school teacher, and I used to teach an interesting subject called biology. I worship at Fem Family Kutus, where I also participate in guidance and counseling department and Sunday school department. More to that, I'm a born-again Christian. So after much thought and consideration, I found it good to start a podcast to help us navigate life's journey, because life is full of pitfalls, it's full of risks, uncertainties, and with more knowledge, with more truth, we'll be able to make our lives better. And as psychologists, we say we want to live a life which is worthy to live, to work, to play, and to love. So through these podcasts, we hope to achieve a lot in bettering our lives. Knowing the truth is a statement which was stated by Jesus Christ, and it's derived from John chapter 8, verse 32, which Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free." So the whole of our life's journey, we are striving to know the truth. We are striving to know what we are doing here on earth. Are we just existing? Or is life more than that? We are striving to know more about our inner being. And we are striving to know about truth about other things which surround us, like our environment, our society, our politics, and everything else which surrounds us. So when Jesus was saying these statements, the two important words we want to look at are freedom and the truth. As human beings, we know that we have many aspects or many components as human beings. First of all, we have this physical body which we see. Do you know the truth about your physical body? What it requires for it to thrive? We shall be exploring that. We have our social life, which involves our relationships with other human beings. So we were born to the world not to live alone, but to live with other people. So socially, we must relate. And to have healthy relationships, we have to ensure that we navigate that part of our lives positively, so that our relationships will have a positive impact and add value to our lives. Then we have our intellectual or cognitive selves, which means our brains and our minds. As we grow up, they are developing, and we continue to understand life better. We continue to be able to make decisions as we grow up. A small baby cannot make decisions, but as we grow up, become toddlers, become teenagers, become adults, our mental capacities or cognitive and intellectual capacities improve and increase so that we are able to make better decisions, logical decisions, rational decisions, and decisions which help us to solve problems which we come across in our lives, because challenges come every day of our lives. So you must know how to navigate those challenges in a good way and to have critical thinking, because this world is full of deceits and risks. So we have that part of our self, our intellectual self. We also have the part of ourself which we call emotional or psychological. It deals with our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior, our moods, our actions. As we grow up, we are supposed to rein in so that our emotions don't go haywire. We know of people who have very little control of their emotions, and some, it's like they enjoy it. For example, people say, I have a hot temper, I cannot control myself in this, I cannot control myself in that. But you know that when we know ourselves better and we know our truth better, we will not act like we are unhinged. We'll control our emotions as per the requirements of as per our circumstances. So human beings are emotional beings. We should feel, yes, we should express our emotions, but it should be within a certain limit. If we go overboard on either side, either too low or too high, of course it will have some psychological effects. And that's what makes some of us get psychological disorders or mental issues. The other part of the human being is the spiritual part of the human being. We are spiritual beings, and all of us must recognize that. If we ignore our spirituality, we are ignoring part of us which is very important. People who have ignored their spirituality and they have made it in life, for example, the celebs who have gained a lot of popularity, the people who become so rich, at the end of the day, they see that their lives have been empty. And they see like there's something missing in their lives. So our spiritual capacities as human beings have to be nurtured. And here we are not talking about religion. We are talking about spiritual, which is deep inside us. And in our later podcast, we shall continue to explore that area of our lives. So we have a lot of truth to discover and to know, once we discover it, how it will help us to move on with our lives and to make more sense of our lives. So how or what do we know about our environment? Do we know the truth about how we live in our environments? There's a lot to learn about our lives and our environments. That is why you have groups of people fighting for the environment, so that as we thrive as human beings, we thrive not in isolation, but in the environment where we live. Then we also thrive due to the societies where we find ourselves. So we'll navigate that later on. We also navigate the part of life which is about our politics. Our politics affect us every day of our lives. Do you know the truth about your politics? Do you know the truth? Or do you know when you are being cheated? Do you know when you are being deceived? As far as politics are concerned, and how does that affect us? We must know the truth about that. So there's a lot to learn about truth. And once we know the truth, we are set free. People who get deeper into themselves and know about themselves actually experience a lot of freedom. Not just physical freedom, where you are free to move from one place to the other, but even mental freedom or inner freedom, which is more important. We can have people who are confined physically, like the ones in jail, but within themselves they are free because they have found themselves. They have found their true self. So this podcast will be helping us to navigate those areas of our lives. This world is becoming more and more complex, more and more risky, more and more deceitful. And especially for our youth and our youngsters, we'll be trying to help you to make better decisions so that we can live in this world in a better way. You'll be able to navigate this world in a way where our lives will make better sense to us. So, as we continue with these podcasts, we'll be looking at self-awareness, looking into ourselves to understand who we are and to understand where we stand in the larger world. So, I'm particularly passionate about the youth because the youth are facing so many challenges in the current world, which us who are older never had to deal with. For example, we have the challenge of social media. We have the challenge of even very few resources. They are being faced with challenges of association. So the youth of today, my heart goes out to you, and I would like to contribute positively to your better lives so that you can succeed and have better lives in the future. So we'll be talking more about youth and maybe social media and all the things, all the issues which are challenging our youth today. In that verse where we have quoted, where Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." In the world today, when we look at the world today, we can see there are two forces opposed to each other. We are the force of darkness, which our Bible tells us that is controlled by Satan. And his work here on earth is to kill, to steal, and to destroy. Satan is here not to do us any good. Whatever good we have in our lives, that is what Satan is after. Satan is not after our buildings or our cars or our property. Satan is after our lives, and he wants to derail our lives so that we don't reach our destinies, which the Almighty God has created for us. So we must be able to unmask this enemy whose mission on earth is to kill. He can kill literally, that is, cause people to die. He can kill our ambitions, our careers, our values, and everything good which you hold dear unto our lives. And you will destroy it if you give him a chance. So he's the father of all lies. So whenever we see things are going wrong, we must realize who is affecting our lives. On the other hand, we have the power of light, which is from God himself. And he's the father of love. He loves us just the way we are. And he's ready to walk through with us in life as he holds our hands. He's ready to help us in everything that we do to better our lives. So in every life situation which we face, we must be aware of how we make those decisions. There are decisions which will lead you to darkness, and there are decisions which will lead you to light. Jesus said he's the light of the world. And those ones who find him find life. So Jesus came to give us life. And not just life, he came to give us life in abundance. So that is associated with our spirituality. When we know the truth about that, and as we dig deep towards that, you realize that this life which Jesus has promised us is to make us better and better in our lives. But the darkness which is from Satan is to take us to death. So every decision we make, let us ask ourselves, where is this decision taking us? So as youth, we are faced with so many decisions, even life-changing decisions. And not just youth, even us who are mature and older. Every decision we'll make will either take us more to the light or more to the darkness. So in our podcast, we'll be exploring that further. In life, still, we see like there is a lot of darkness. I'm a avid watcher of, I watch real life or real crime, true crime videos or stories. And most of those stories are very scary, very bad. And at the end of the day, for example, when there is a murder, somebody murders somebody else, like what we had in Kenya the other day, where bodies were retrieved from a quarry. You ask yourself, how does one go to that extent of killing or murdering somebody else? Cutting into pieces that person who he has murdered and then dumping them into a quarry. And not one person, many. I think that time they were retrieving those bodies, I think there were about 15 of them. So you wonder, how can we explain that behavior? It's for us to try to explain it or to explore it, because many of these people who do those heinous crimes, some of them are never remorseful about it. They are never sorry about it. What takes a person to such an extent? So we have those extremes. On the other hand, we have good people in the community who are fighting for decency and morality, and who are hell-bent to or bent to get goodness from human beings. People who are good, in quotes, are they just good for goodness' sake? Or is there something else generating that goodness? You want to see that, or we want to understand why do some people become good while others become very bad? While also many of us are there in between. So in psychology, every characteristic we have or we display is usually a continuum of aspects. For example, if we take a trait like honesty, there's a continuum from no honesty to very honest. If we have to range from 0 to 100, 100 will be the highest level of honesty. 0 will be the lowest level of honesty. As human beings, there's no one who has the 100%. Even the people we think are very honest, they are not very honest. They cannot reach the 100%. People who are very dishonest are not at 0 because sometimes they could be honest. So most of us are in between there, meaning that every human being has a room for growth to become better. And you'll be exploring how we grow in our negative characteristics to become better and better, or where we have not reached the mark. How can we improve? We shall be looking at that more and more as we continue. And then about science and what people study in science. We have talked about spiritual aspect of the human being. In the spiritual aspect of the human being, we know that God created us and He created other things. People who study science, let's say science in biology, all biologists study things which have been created. There is no scientists who create something for them to study. So you have to appreciate that God has a role to play in our lives. People who study the environment study it because it's there for it to be studied. People who study the space, astronauts, study it because it is there. And all they do is to discover what there is already. Therefore, people who believe that there is no God and maybe they believe in something like evolution, which we learn in biology, will be challenging some of those beliefs and then try to explain how life or how science works together with spirituality. Many of the scientists, when they discover things, they end up believing that all that order which is created, for example, in our bodies, if you look at our bodies, the way they work, the organs, the systems, the cells in our bodies, you realize that however your cell is organized, one cell, and you are made up of millions and millions of cells, the way it works, it's not just an haphazard way. It is organized in a very, very delicate way to make us live. If you look at our organs, like the eye itself, just the eye, the way the eye works is very, very technical. There is no way an eye came together just like that. The way a baby grows from conception to adulthood, it is actually a marvel of science. So we'll be exploring those as we look at our physical bodies and see why we should respect our bodies, why we should respect nature, why we should respect even those scientists who study these things and they enlighten us more and more about what we are seeing and maybe what we go through. Like when we are sick, why do we get sick and everything like that? We shall be exploring all those things. So, because this is my first podcast, I don't want to talk so much, but I encourage you to continue listening to the future podcasts. And I want to thank you for listening to these podcasts this far. Thank you for staying with me. Continue subscribing to this channel. I'll be more and more encouraged to make future channels, to make future podcasts. So I want to conclude at that point and pray that next podcast, which will be starting on self-awareness series, it shall be present to keep me company. So with that, goodbye. God bless you.